Welcome to Ancient Faith Presents. I'm Bobby Maddox, the Director of Digital Media for Ancient Faith Ministries. And today I will be speaking with John Maddox, the former CEO of AFM, and Father Tom Soroka, the host of the weekly call-in show Ancient Faith Today Live. The new season of Ancient Faith Today will be beginning in January of 2024, per usual, but there are some major changes to the show that I'm sure you will want to hear about. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Bobby.
Thanks, Bobby.
All right, John, let's start with you. Ancient Faith Today was the very first live show on AFR. How did that come about, and what was the vision for that show?
Yeah, sure. So it was with Kevin Allen of blessed memory. And Kevin Allen at the time was doing an interview program called The Illumined Heart. It was pretty wide-ranging in terms of topics, just some convert stories, some issues, but mostly just interesting content that really didn't have an edge to it. He wanted to address the issues, but he assumed that the format had to be pre-recorded. But our freelance engineer at the time put an equipment list together that would allow us to do it live with calls. And when Kevin heard that, his eyes lit up. He really wanted to do this. So we flew our engineer out to California, to Kevin's home, and he installed a professional studio on the upstairs of Kevin's beautiful home. And Ancient Faith Today with Kevin Allen launched on April 23rd, 2012, with the very first topic, The New Atheists and Their Claims, which is still available to listen to today.
Yeah, I remember that night. It was amazing. We felt like we were truly taking Ancient Faith to the next level. It was so exciting. I think we generated some fake calls, maybe. I can't remember exactly.
I think we had
to. So how did the show evolve over the years? I mean, it seemed like in the early stages, the program featured a ton of convert stories, and but then it progressed from there, right?
Well, it was the Illumined Heart that really was the convert stories and the more lighter material. And some people get confused with the Illumined Heart versus Ancient Faith Today because it's Kevin Allen doing interviews, right? So it sounds like it's very much the same. But it was really issues-based right from the beginning. But Kevin himself just kept getting better and better. And he had earlier sold his business, which gave him time to devote totally to his show. And this guy was thoroughly prepared, I'll tell you, almost to a fault. He would wear out his guests with multiple drafts of his script. And so I would get these calls from guests saying, do you think maybe we got the last script now? But I mean, he was so good at interviews, and I knew we had a winner right away.
Awesome. So, and then of course, with the passing of Kevin of blessed memory, did you think the show was pretty much done at that point? When did it occur to you that we need to resurrect it, and that Father Tom would make a good next host?
Well, it did feel like it would be hard to find someone who had the time and the curiosity to hit the issues head on like Kevin did, because anyone who knew Kevin knew that he was one of a kind, but seriously good as an interviewer, as good as any interviewer I had ever worked with in my some 40 years at the time in radio. Right. So when Kevin lost his battle with ALS, then his last show was posted on February 1st, 2016. But as I got to know Father Tom Soroka, my mind started thinking about the possibility of asking him. And Bobby, you may remember you and I talking about this.
Yeah, I did, and that was my first pick too.
Yep, and we both felt that Father Tom would be an ideal replacement. I mean, he knows the Orthodox landscape as well as anyone we know.
Yeah.
He is articulate, balanced, has a great reputation in the Orthodox world. So we launched with him in January of 2020, and we threw him a real softball of a topic, that first one. I mean, I don't know how we let him get away with talking about something as simple as Orthodox unity.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's done such a great job after that. I mean, I am so impressed week after week with his skills in interviewing, inserting his own commentary into the interviews, leading the guests along. I couldn't be more happy about having him as the host of Ancient Faith Today. Father Tom, what were your thoughts as you decided to take on the role of host of Ancient Faith Today Live?
It was overwhelming because, as John said, Kevin Allen's talent was unmatched, but also that he really did something that had not existed before in the Orthodox world. This was completely new. And so, in a way, he had both the burden and the, I would say, the privilege of laying this out and what it would look like and, how it would happen. And I think, in a way, this really provided a springboard for us to take the next step because, that particular time, if you look back, we're only talking about 11 years ago when it started, right? But it seems like it was 100 years ago. Things have changed very drastically in terms of social media, which really didn't exist at that point.
That's right.
The self-publishing on YouTube, that wasn't a thing then.
Yeah.
So the challenges are very different. Some of the subject matter is the same, but the way in which we have to approach it, I think, certainly is something that we didn't foresee. So it was just crazy to think that this was actually going to happen.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned about the changing landscape, and what I love about this show is that you can kind of continue the legacy, but you've totally made it your own. How have you developed it, internally, inside yourself as you present the show and fine-tuned your approach?
I think every host of every show is going to bring their own personality and their own experiences. For me, I want to let that guest shine, which I think certainly Kevin did also. But I want to have the opportunity to kind of maybe give my own spin on things and to be able to give a reasoned voice or perspective as a lifelong Orthodox Christian, as coming from a family of priests, but also observing the American Orthodox world for the last 60 years now. And also just to say, to tell the listener, here's pastorally what I think we might be getting from that particular subject.
Yeah, I love that. And so we're changing formats. I mean, kind of. It's going to be the same Ancient Faith Today Live, but we're adding some new elements, and we're going to tackle different subject matters. So one of you can one of you tell me what prompted this somewhat new change in format, and what exactly is this new format going to look like?
Go ahead, Father
John,
Tom.
why don't you go ahead?
No, you want me to? Go ahead.
Yeah, please go ahead and address it first. I have some thoughts also.
Yeah, well, so documentary production has been a love of mine for virtually my entire radio career. First as a consumer of documentary production, both at Moody Radio, which I spent 35 years at Focus on the Family, which I spent 3 years at, and then after becoming Orthodox at Ancient Faith Radio. And we tackled our first major documentary, even though we have had some other documentaries on Ancient Faith in the documentary podcast. There were some fun things that we did. But the first major one was about 2 or 3 years ago when we tackled a very difficult topic of Christian faith and same-sex attraction. And I started talking to people and getting different perspectives and talking to real people who suffered with same-sex attraction, but yet were trying to remain faithful and obedient to the church. And I said, this story has got to be told. So I jumped in with all fours, and it ended up being a 4-part series. 3 of the 4 parts are an hour long, and the other one is about 45 minutes. But it just gave me a taste for what could be done to address some of the more difficult topics that face the church today. So you couple that with a burden for a similar outreach that you, Father Tom, had, and it just came together beautifully.
Yeah. And the one thing that I would add here is, I think the issue also is we can't always kind of find that safe space to hide in.
Yeah.
As the leading Orthodox provider of media in this English-speaking world, Ancient Faith, certainly we're here to encourage people and we're here to educate and inform. But the other thing is, we know that people have opinions about things and that sometimes there are divisive issues. And what happens is we try to find that space that says, oh, I can't touch that, or I can't really talk about that because someone might get angry. But I think what we have to distinguish ourselves as in this particular new venture where we're going to present these controversial issues is to say, not just here's one side and here's the other, but rather try to guide the listener and the viewer through this particular subject in a way that allows them to make a really informed conclusion without, and this is the big thing, without being divisive, without being, trying to somehow over dramatize or completely shut out a particular perspective, even if I don't agree with it.
Yeah.
Right? Like I want to be able to hear someone articulate their position, and then, us as the hosts of these particular special programs to say, here's where I think that's wrong. And we have to stop being scared to do that. I think that's, or here's where I think it's right. And we have to be able to look at that very honestly.
Yeah. I'm glad you raised that point. I mean, your show has always dealt with somewhat controversial topics, but it seems like in this new year and going forward that we're really going after it now. And so I'm just wondering, why are we taking this approach to controversial subjects? Why are we going in this direction as opposed to, keeping it the way that we used to do it? Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that because we lend a credibility that others may not have, that independent producers are there to maybe, and I'm trying not to broad brush, but this is very important. We don't have an axe to grind, and we don't have necessarily a point to make, but we need to not necessarily allow someone else to dictate or create the narrative that only a seasoned experts and people with credibility can actually address, and we can help navigate the viewer through that.
Sure.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, Bobby and Father Tom, that the beauty of documentary format is that it's not a debate. It's not a confrontation. It is facts. It's information. It is real people telling their perspective and story without someone talking over them or arguing them off the stage or making them, feel small or impugning motives. It is literally listening more and learning.
Yeah.
We may not agree with what we hear, but respectful listening is not the same thing as agreeing. And I think that is a very important thing to remember as we produce these documentaries, because you're going to hear some things based on the topics that we're covering that you're not going to agree with, whether you are for or against a certain topic. You're also going to hear what I like to call the nuanced middle on many of these topics, where we get into these extreme arguments and the truth lies somewhere in the middle that nobody's talking about. So I think this format is perfect for the Ancient Faith Today show, and I really appreciate Father Tom's openness to allow us to do it.
Yeah. So, John, as the person who established the very first Ancient Faith Today and made that a show, let's talk about it being a flagship program. I think we're trying to reestablish this as this is our big show. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, and the name says it, right? Ancient Faith.
It has our name
today.
on it. Yeah,
it has our name on it, and I think because of the approach we're taking with the show, it's time to invest more resources into it. It's time to give Father Tom some support. He is a full-time parish priest. He's also very busy in the Archdiocese, and he has the ability to talk about these topics intelligently, but he needs a little help with the time it takes to research and to get some of these guests lined up. And by doing a documentary format, we can present this on his show together, listen together, and then come back on together and kind of identify, what did we learn? Did anything new that we didn't know before?
Yeah.
Maybe we had the wrong perception of some of these perspectives, maybe the right one. But again, in an intelligent conversational format, not the presidential debate format that we've been seeing recently.
Right. Yeah. Let's talk about that documentary portion for a second. You described it several times now, but I don't think that listeners necessarily will understand from what we've presented so far, like of what this will consist. I mean, is it going to be like a documentary just slapped in the middle of an episode? Is it going to be produced in segments? Like, how is this going to work?
Go ahead, Father Tom, because we've talked about this together.
So the vision here is that we're going to take a particular subject, and I'm sure we're going to announce this at the end, but we're going to take certain subcategories of that subject. John is actually going to go out and he's going to interview people that have varying perspectives on that subject. In some particular cases, for and against. So it might be from a historical standpoint, and then from a theological standpoint, from a biblical standpoint, from a moral standpoint, from an ethical standpoint. And, each one of these experts or people that are very informed or have credible, this is the most important thing, that have credible information and qualifications to speak on a particular subject, John will interview them. We will play that for the listener. And then when that segment is over, John and I are going to come back. We're going to discuss it. We're going to open up the phone lines. We're going to ask people to give comments. Of course, there's always going to be a constant flow of social media comments that are going to be happening live. And then we're just going to engage that. And then we're going to go to the next section and the next section and the next section.
So, Father Tom, how often will these documentary portions be presented? I mean, it's not going to be every show, correct?
Correct. We are planning 6 to 8 this year, right, John?
Yes, I hope to do 8, but we'll see.
Yeah. So, I would say about every month and a half to every 2 months, we'll have a special episode of Ancient Faith Today Live that will be just dedicated to some really controversial but important. It's not controversy for controversy's sake.
Yeah.
These are important issues that people are asking about. People are asking priests all the time, what should I do with this? What should I do with that? And so we want to be able to give them informed information that is going to help us get to a conclusion about something.
Yeah. I was going to ask about that. So, what is the goal of this show? Like, so we're going to deal with these controversial topics. Like, what are we hoping that listeners will come away with after they listen?
John?
Yeah. Well, so it depends on the topic, right? Some of these topics we are going to have as a very definitive viewpoint, because those are the things where the church has been clear and where we don't have to guess what the church teaches. And, to identify some errors in teaching where the church is clear, that will be a goal to ironically talk about that and help people understand what the church does teach. Other topics are kind of controversial because people don't know what the church's position is on the topic, because the church has not declared it.
Yeah.
And so it is an opportunity to parse that out. Well, what part did the church declare? What part didn't they? Where is there room for disagreement without being disagreeable? And put on the table in a broad format, probably 10 or 12 voices in any given single documentary, who will help us sort through the issues and speak to them in a way that we can understand.
Yeah, very good. So, Father Tom, your show's going to proceed normally, right? So you're still going to be on every week. You're still going to be taking calls, even with the documentary portions. You're a live call-in show.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And can I also say, Bobby, just about that, we're looking for new ways to engage listeners live. So I know the call paradigm, how many people use their phone, right?
Right.
But we're looking for new ways to engage with people. So I think you're going to see that roll out as we enter the year. The one other thing that I wanted to add with what John said is, because social media, YouTube presenters are so one-sided, right? What you have to do, unfortunately, is if you have to look at one side of the issue, you have to listen to that lecture. And then if you want to see the other side of the issue, well, you have to go somewhere else and listen to that. And what we're trying to do is provide this information in, as John said, an ironic way, but not an inconclusive way.
Yeah,
I think that's really important.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be really, really helpful and edifying to people.
Awesome. And I want to point out, too, that the show will continue to be on YouTube, even in the new format, and we're going to figure out some innovative ways to make it visually pleasing. We have a great YouTube guy. His name's Simon, who works for Ancient Faith, and we're even looking at ways to include video interviews within the body of the video live podcast. And so it's super exciting. It's going to be very pushing the boundaries for us, and I'm just so excited about the whole thing. It's just going to be great.
Me too.
Yeah,
I am too.
Yeah. So this is going to begin on January 30th. Is that the first new episode with the new format?
God willing, we are already lining up interviews. I've already conducted a couple, and we're going to be producing all of this together in a highly produced format and have it ready to play on Tuesday evening, January 30th. And are we ready to reveal the topic?
Yeah, let's do it. I've been holding off. Go ahead.
All right. So in conversation with Father Tom, we've agreed that a timely topic would be the growing interest by some to reinstate the female diaconate. This is a very controversial topic, and people are passionate about it. And from what I've observed on the internet is that people are yelling about it, but they're not talking about it. And so what can we do to give a fair opportunity for people on both sides and even in the middle to clearly, in a non-combative format, state what they want to do? And when we hear both sides, I mean, it may be an hour, it may be 90 minutes, but after we hear both sides, we will at least be far better informed than we were before. And it can help us then kind of analyze what we heard and what we can learn from it.
Yeah.
And so the topic is deaconesses.
Just so you know. Okay, so it's
deaconesses.
Yes, just deaconesses. No big deal. So we're going to tackle the female diaconate, and I think it was important that you pointed out, John, that this show is not going to be limited any longer to an hour. We're going to explore this stuff for however long it takes, and if we need to go into an hour and a half, if we need to go even into 2 hours, that's going to be acceptable. We're gonna pick this thing apart.
Yeah, there's no way actually to cover all of the information that we want to in just an hour and still leave time for callers to call in, in these various segments, or for people to give comments. So we'll be reading those comments live on the air as this is playing, to be able to get a sense of where people are at. But again, we still have to be Orthodox Christians about all of this.
Yep.
This is not a cage match, right?
Please no.
Like we're trying to present in a respectful way what each side is saying and provide that forum for some kind of conclusion or tie a bow on the end of it.
Yeah.
And do it in a way where we can still be Orthodox Christians and love one another, and inform and really encourage.
Well, you too. Like, I am so excited about this development. I think it's one of the most significant developments in ancient faith history. I think this is going to be a fantastic program, and finally an opportunity to look objectively at some key issues that really affect our Orthodox faith, that affect the Orthodox Church. And I have complete trust in both of you that you will handle it appropriately, and I just can't wait for people to listen.
I hope they do. I think they might learn something, because I know I'm looking forward to learning something.
Yeah.
I am too.
Great. Well, John, Father Tom, I thank you so much for joining me today.
Great to be
Thank you,
here,
Bobby.
and
Appreciate
we'll
it.
see you on January 30th. Mark your calendars.
Yeah, it sounds good.
Let's do this.
All right, so once again, I've been speaking with John Maddox and Father Tom Soroka, who together will be presenting a whole new revamped version of Ancient Faith Today Live, coming your way in January of 2024. I'm Bobby Maddox, and this has been a listener-supported presentation of Ancient Faith Radio.